Good morning, church. It is so good to be here with you this morning. It's such a blessing to be here together on this beautiful day. And as we get started with our lesson this morning, for those of you who can remember, June 1st, 1979. Does that date mean anything to you? It might not mean anything to you because I see some of you shaking your heads because you're laughing at the idea of not being born by that time or not being able to remember that far back. June 1st, 1979 was a significant date for a very specific group of people who played for the Pittsburgh Pirates. On June 1st, 1979, things were not going well. They were losing the game by 3 runs and had not played well up to that point in the season. They were in 4th place in their division, and expectations had been much higher for the team that year, and things were just not going well at all. And then, almost to add insult to injury, the rains came in and delayed the game, and so they're just sitting there waiting to finish the game. And at that point in history, they would try different things to play different music or videos or whatever to kind of keep the crowd engaged for however long the rain was coming down, to try and make sure that they didn't leave so they could continue to make more money on concessions. But on this occasion, they were playing music and they were trying to go through some of the more popular songs, some of the top chart songs in 1979, when over the speakers came "We Are Family" by Sister Sledge. Great name, right? And Willie Stargell, the unquestioned leader of the 1979 Pirates, got on the phone and called up to the press box and said, "That is our theme song starting now." And so they quickly put together a little blurb and put on the outfield scoreboard, "We Are Family," the official theme song of the 1979 Pirates. And from that day forward, that season became very much about comebacks. Because once the rain stopped and they were able to finish that game, they came back and won in extra innings. And then, as the season went on, they were able to leapfrog 3 other teams in order to finish in first place by winning two-thirds of their remaining games. And then, they were one of only 6 teams in the entire 20th century to win a World Series championship after being down 3-1. So all year long, they focused on this idea that we are family. Because the implication in their minds was we are not going to give up on each other. We are not going to quit. We are not going to start pointing fingers at each other and try to play the blame game. We're going to have each other's backs, and we're going to fight together all the way to the bitter end. And they did. And as Larry has already pointed out for us this morning, that very much is what the church is about as well, isn't it? How we are family. We've approached this idea of why church from a lot of different angles. And as we are in a unique time of year, since today is Mother's Day, as I'm sure you noticed with all the flowers being handed out this morning. And as Father's Day is in just a few weeks, family is on our minds. And one of the more unique descriptions of the church is family. We are family. We're described as brothers and sisters. And you've probably heard many Christians refer to each other and talk to each other as brother this or sister that, right? And if it was your first time visiting and you heard that, you thought, well, maybe that's a little weird. Because I know they're not brothers. They're not actual sisters, right? And in fact, in the first century, early Christians struggled with this because on the outside looking in, accusations began to be made because they knew that these were not all actual brothers and sisters. Or no, I'm sorry, back that up. In hearing them call each other brothers and sisters, they began to be accused of incest because they knew that a lot of these people were married to each other and they're brothers and sisters. What's going on with this weird religious group over here? But we are family. And because we are family, it sustains us when we need it. We receive that encouragement, that support, that strength that we need many times throughout this life. But if your family, your physical family, is anything like my physical family, and I would say that they probably are, then you also know that no matter what family it is, this family is not perfect. Amen? We know that that's true. We know that that's the way family works. It is far from perfect, not anywhere close to perfect. And so then that means that sometimes we're not going to have the best encouragement or support that we need. Sometimes things are not going to go the way that they probably should because families aren't perfect. Then the question becomes, how do we deal with that? How do we deal with the reality that my family, even my spiritual church family, is not perfect? What do I do? Do I complain and argue and gripe until I finally get my way or have things done the way that I think they should be done? Do I try to push out some of those family members that aren't doing what I think they ought to be doing? Do I leave? Do I just go find a different family to be a part of? Well, I want us to look today at a family that is described for us in Scripture. And I want us to notice something about some of the interactions that they have with each other, both negative and positive. And it's in the book of Genesis. If you'll turn to Genesis chapter 37, we're going to begin reading there. And it won't take you long, I don't think, to realize that we are certainly reading about a family that is not at all perfect. Genesis 37, starting with verse 1. Jacob lived in the land of his father's sojournings in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was pasturing the flock with his brothers. He was a boy with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought a bad report of them to their father. Now Israel, that's Jacob, loved Joseph more than any other of his sons because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a robe of many colors. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peacefully to him. So Joseph was the favorite. Now, I have a favorite team, and you can have a favorite team that's different. You're allowed to be wrong. And that's okay. That's no big deal. But we're not supposed to have favorite people, favorite sons, favorite sisters, favorite siblings. And yet, it happens, doesn't it? Family members may play favorites. And we've seen that. Maybe you've seen it in a physical family, your own physical family in some way. And we see the damage that it can do. We see the hatred here in Jacob's family that is aimed toward Joseph because he's the favorite. They can't even speak peacefully to him because he's the favorite. And that's what happens when family members play favorites. It creates resentment. It creates anger. It creates hatred even. That's not supposed to be the family of God, is it? We don't need cliques in the church. We don't need favorites in the church. But sometimes it happens. How do you deal with it? Well, hopefully you don't deal with it like Joseph's brothers. Let's keep reading. Starting with verse 5. Now Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Hear this dream that I have dreamed. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaf arose and stood upright. And behold, your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf." His brothers said to him, "Are you indeed going to reign over us? Or are you indeed to rule over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Then he dreamed another dream and brilliantly told it to his brothers and said, "Behold, I have dreamed another dream. Behold, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." And when he told it to his father and to his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow ourselves to the ground before you?" And his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the saying in mind. Do you ever read those verses and go, of course Joseph's 17? He's not getting it, is he? Oh, Joseph, you're so naive. He's so oblivious to what's going on around him, it seems, because he's kind of wrapped up in himself a little bit in this moment. And he's just talking. He's not thinking very carefully about what is being heard when he shares these dreams to his brothers and to his father. And that reminded me that sometimes family members are going to say some dumb things, right? Family members say dumb things. They say arrogant things. They say passive-aggressive things. They say a lot of things that are not taken very well by other family members. And sometimes you're going to be on the receiving end of some dumb things that family members are going to say. And you know, our spiritual family's no different. And sometimes it's intentional. Sometimes it's a little like Joseph, who's just not getting it. He's not really catching how this is being received, and he just keeps on saying it. So what do you do when you're on the receiving end of some hurtful, dumb things that people say, whether intentional or unintentional? Well, let's skip ahead a little bit and keep reading, starting with verse 18. Again, let's hope you don't respond the way Joseph's brothers do. They, his brothers, saw him from afar, and before he came near to them, they conspired against him to kill him. They said to one another, "Here comes this dreamer. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. Then we will say that a fierce animal has devoured him, and we will see what will become of his dreams." But when Reuben heard it, he rescued him out of their hands, saying, "Let us not take his life." And Reuben said to them, "Shed no blood. Throw him into this pit here in the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him, that he might rescue him out of their hand to restore him to his father." So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the robe of many colors that he wore, and they took him and threw him into a pit, and the pit was empty. There was no water in it. Now, up to this point, we have at least acknowledged the possibility that some of the things that family members may say or do that may not be received very well could be unintentional. Right? Sometimes we are hurt by things that others say and do that they didn't intend to be hurtful. They just didn't think very carefully about what they were saying or doing. But sometimes we see cases like Joseph's brothers who were very intentional about their actions. And sometimes family members do hurtful things intentionally. Even those that we love, even those who love us, will at times do things that are very hurtful. Now, in the case of Joseph, we know the sequence of events that follows, right? Some slave traders come by and his brothers decide to make a little money while they're at it. They sell Joseph off to those slave traders, and then they, in turn, sell him in Egypt to a man named Potiphar. Joseph is fairly successful as a slave in Potiphar's house until Potiphar's wife makes advances on Joseph. And when he refuses those advances, she makes false accusations against him, and he's thrown into prison. And then while they're in prison, Joseph is a model prisoner, and he has some success there, and he's put in charge of some things. And he has an opportunity, by the grace of God and by the gift that God gives him, to interpret some dreams. And because of those dreams that he interpreted, he eventually has the opportunity to interpret the dream of the Egyptian Pharaoh. And Pharaoh, after that interpretation, puts Joseph in command of all of Egypt. He says, "Only by my throne am I over you." So Joseph's second in command in all of Egypt because he is going to help them get through this coming famine, this shortage of food. But then what happens is pretty special. Because that famine, that shortage of food is so widespread that Joseph's own family is being affected, and they hear that there is grain available in Egypt, and his brothers show up right there, bowing in front of him, not recognizing him, fulfilling those dreams that he had as they bowed, paying homage to him. And ultimately, Joseph brings his whole family, his brothers and their families and his own father, into Egypt so that he can help take care of them. But the story shifts a little bit when we get to chapter 50, because it's then that their father, Jacob, dies. And I want you to notice the conversation that takes place here. In Genesis chapter 50, starting with verse 15. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, "It may be that Joseph will hate us and pay us back for all the evil that we did to him." So they sent a message to Joseph saying, "Your father gave this command before he died to say to Joseph, 'Please forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin because they did evil to you. And now please forgive the transgression of the servants of the God of your father.'" Joseph wept when they spoke to him. His brothers also came and fell down before him and said, "Behold, we are your servants." But Joseph said to them, "Do not fear, for am I in the place of God? As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today. So do not fear. I will provide for you and your little ones." And thus he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. Family members are going to do a lot of things that are going to hurt us, aren't they? Family members may play favorites. Family members may say dumb things. Family members may do hurtful, harmful things to us. And we have a decision that we have to make. How are we going to respond to those things? Sometimes that is an incredibly difficult position to find ourselves in. I can't imagine what went through Joseph's mind when he saw his brothers come walking in that first time. I can't imagine how he wouldn't have wanted to retaliate, to just have them all put to death, to do them as much harm as he possibly could, because they hated him so much that they sold him into slavery. Can you imagine hating any family member so much that you're willing to sell them into slavery? And yet, what does Joseph do? When they're worried that he is going to finally have his revenge, when they're worried that maybe Joseph was waiting until Dad died to carry out his plan, Joseph instead recognizes that families need forgiveness and compassion. You see, the easy choice is retaliation. The easy choice is revenge. The easy choice is to just get up and leave, not have anything to do with these people anymore. Whether we're talking about our physical families or spiritual family. But the reality is that family members need forgiveness and compassion. And that applies to every single one of us. Because at some point, you're not going to be the one on the receiving end. You're going to be the one who said the dumb thing. You're going to be the one who's like Joseph and doesn't quite realize what you're saying, and you say it the wrong way, and you really hurt someone. And you need forgiveness and grace. You need kindness. I love that Joseph is described here as showing them kindness. Because that's what it's really about, isn't it? When we talk about the family of God, what every family member needs from every one of us is kindness. That means we aren't looking for reasons to lash out at each other. We aren't looking for reasons to seek out revenge. We aren't looking for reasons to argue and gripe and complain about each other. Instead, we're looking for opportunities to show kindness to one another, to speak peacefully with each other. The opposite of Joseph's brothers, if you remember, said they couldn't even speak peacefully to him. That's how angry they were. That's not what we're about as a part of the family of God, is it? Speaking peacefully to each other. And ultimately, what that means for us is the same thing that I said it meant for that baseball team 45 years ago. It's that we have each other's backs. That we're here to support each other. We're here to help each other. We're going to work together no matter what it takes to the bitter end. That's what God needs from the church family. That's what we need to be as representatives of Jesus Christ in this world. We're here for each other. We're here to help each other and support each other through all of life. Even when that family member says or does something that hurts and might even hurt a lot. That's when it's incumbent upon us to show them kindness and forgiveness and compassion. So I hope and I pray that you have not been harmed by your spiritual family. But I know that many at some point have. And at times it can be hard to overcome that. But I want you to know that it is possible to continue to be peaceful and kind in the way we respond to those hurtful actions. If Joseph, who was thrown into prison, who was sold into slavery, whose brothers hoped he would just die and go away, if he can show kindness and forgiveness to those brothers, I'm certain that we can as well to all that harm us in some way. Maybe you're struggling with that today. Maybe someone in your life, in your physical family or your spiritual family, has said something, has done something that has hurt you. And you're still struggling with that. You're still holding a grudge. You're still holding on to that hurt. I hope that you will turn it over to God. Allow Him to help you to overcome that pain with forgiveness. And maybe we need to help you with that this morning. Maybe we need to pray with you to help you to overcome that. Maybe there's something else going on in your life that has become a significant strain on you, a struggle that you're dealing with, and you need us to pray with you and encourage you this morning. I hope that whatever it is that you're dealing with, you'll know that this is, in fact, a family that is here for you and wants to support you and help you through whatever you're dealing with. Or maybe you're not a part of God's family. Maybe you haven't committed yourself to Jesus Christ, and that's what you need to do today. Maybe you need to join the family of God by repenting of the sins in your life and being baptized into Jesus Christ so that your sins can be washed away. If you haven't made that choice, there is no more important choice that you will ever make in your life. So I hope that if there's anything at all that we can do for you this morning, you'll take advantage of this opportunity right now. And let us know how we can help you while we stand together and while we sing.